never stop being an addict.
Yeah.
And addiction can be a secret superpower, but it is also just, that is your mental template. You are an addict.
Yeah.
You will always be an addict.
Yeah.
Addicts just cross-addict to other things. So you'll often see in Alcoholics Anonymous, people will cross-addict to fitness or an art of some form. They'll start drawing, they'll start painting, they'll start walking their dog too much, and they cross-addict to something else because you never stop being an addict. So I think when people try and suppress that, it's like trying to push a balloon underwater. It's going to pop up somewhere, so you need to give it a positive outlet. So yes, I still feel those things and they worry me sometimes, and I have to remain very, very conscious of the things that I'm focusing on, and also, am I thinking about them too much? And one of my good friends, John, said when I started dating Hillary, it was like, don't make it a project. Like, don't, because you can also hyper-focus on people. You can get addicted to people. You can get addicted to substances. You can get addicted to habits. That's why I've had so many injuries. Like my body telling me enough is enough. Yeah. And then I just kept going and going and going, ripped the patella tendon off, tore my pec major off, cortisone in his shoulder, tore that rotator cuff off, prolapse disc in my back, because I didn't know when enough was enough. So I am always conscious of that. I wouldn't say I worry about it, because it just is what it is. You can get stuck in that constant mental cycle. It's just not a healthy place to be. You can't, I always say, trying to think your way out of a thinking problem is like trying to snort your way out of a cocaine addiction. It's not going to work. You need to act your way into a new way of thinking. You can't just think your way into a new way of acting. Do you know what I mean? You can't just, if you're struggling with something in the morning, they say Tony Robbins, the priming mechanism, stuff like that, get up and do something. Get up and start acting a different way. Go for a walk. Go and have a cold shower or something like that. You can't just sit there and try and think your way, because people say, oh no, that's how meditation works. No, it's not. Meditation, you're focusing on breath, you're focusing on your presence, you're focusing on other things. Oh, can I hear that car? Can I hear that tree? Focusing on my breath, staring at a candle or something. You are acting your way into a new way of thinking. You can't just lie there and try and think your way out of something. So when I think about my neurodiversities and some of the challenges I have with addiction, hyperactivity, and all that sort of stuff, I'm not going to beat myself to death saying, you're a really bad person and you're always going to struggle with this. No one's ever going to like you. You're never going to run a big successful business because you can't focus on anything for long enough. You talk too much so people don't think you listen to them, so no one's ever going to love you again. Okay, now what's the end destination of that thought process? I'm not saying never take feedback and just think, oh, well, if people, when people go, people don't like me, that's their problem. No, not really. That's your problem, because you need people. I always say there's no such thing as a baby. And what I mean by that is a baby doesn't live independently. Ted doesn't live on his own. He lives reliant on you two. Yeah. We all live reliant on something else. Even say, oh no, I'm an independent human being. No, you're not, because you rely on someone for your electricity. You rely on your business. You rely on your clients. We need other people. We're pack animals, aren't we? So you can't just be like, I'm who I am, and if you don't like it, that sucks to be you. No, you need to take that feedback. So, again, the conversations I have with my partner, Hillary, she's really good at helping me achieve the things that I want to achieve, but not by totally betraying the person that I am. I don't need to change, but I do need to adapt to the people around me so that I can build those connections, so that I can experience happy experiences with other people. Otherwise, you're just blindly going to keep plowing forward, offending people, upsetting people, damaging relationships, and going, oh, that's okay, I'll just get another missus, I'll just get another partner. Again, kids being the best personal development tool, you want your kid to like you. You can't just go, never mind, I'll just get another kid. You can say that with your partner if you want to. Well, she's just different, I'll get another missus. When you have a kid, it really makes you want to build a relationship, because you really want this person to like you and you want them to listen to you, you want to help them, but you've got to be able to connect with them. So it's the difference between impact intended versus impact felt. Like, if my impact in this conversation here, I want to have a valuable conversation with you. Well, is that the impact felt? Well, no, actually, I just felt like Pete talked at me for 2.5 hours and I didn't feel like he listened to anything that I said. That's not what I wanted to achieve. So you need to be reading the audience. You need to be listening to the people around you. You need to be taking that feedback on board. Otherwise, you're never going to share those experiences. You're never going to get that happiness, because you're just blindly barreling forwards with all of these bad behaviors that you're not willing to adapt to.
There's a quote that I love, which is, love people and use things, because the other way around doesn't work. And I think it's a lot of people
Say it again.
So it's love people and use things. Otherwise, the other way around doesn't work. And I think it's
Use
that where,
people love things. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and I think that
damn.
I personally know a lot of people who love things. They love nice things. They love, experiences and whatever, but they don't necessarily connect with people. And it's always like, on to the next one. Let's do this. And I just think it can be a shallow way to live. It can be a hard way to live. And obviously being a parent probably brings you, that to quite a moral level, I suppose.
It does, because you don't want to swap out that person.
No.
You don't want
I
to
think
swap out
there's a bit of both. I think I totally agree. I think that people don't have enough meaningful connections, and they try and reject people and get into this stoic way of thinking around. Like I said, it's it's not you. It's kind of what we said? It was something around. It's other people's problems. It's not my problem.
Yeah.
That way of thinking just isolates you, and I see so many people. A lot of people I coach actually who get a little bit like that, where they get into the gym and they go around and shut everyone off and go into this kind of deep state winter arc, they call it now. We've mentioned the winter arc.
Winter arc? No, that's right.
It's a new phrase where everyone's talking about, where they go into like this kind of very like they go into the winter period and they're going to find themselves and they're going to put on some muscle mass and bulk a little bit, and they're going to become like 2.0 version of themselves. But doing that, you block a lot of those connections off. And I think people spend their whole lives doing that. I've got some business people that I've coached in the past, and they've been very similar. They've kind of been quite isolated, and they're also very unhappy because they love things. They've got all the kind of possessions in the world. I got one guy I remember who's got everything you could ever imagine, literally, but he just wasn't a happy guy. And I think it was because he was quite ruthless in what he did. He wasn't bothered about connections. He just wanted money and business and moving forwards. I think you've got to be very careful with that. And it's probably the good thing about working with quite a lot of people. You also pick up the pros and cons of the people that you maybe want to be like, because you're going to get people you coach who you're drawn to, who are cool. Oh, he's got that really cool car. He's got that amazing house. I want that. But then you start breaking them down. You go, well, they've got all those flaws as well. And how did they get there? And you start piecing it together. And
you can't swap all of you. You can't swap part of you. I always say, like, if we put all three of us put our problems on the table now, you'd probably pick your own up again. So I look, he's got a nice Porsche outside. Oh, he's got a nice house. Oh, he's got a nice thing. Well, I've done that, no better or worse. I've got a tattoo. Oh, I'm no better than anyone. No one's better than me. But like, if I want your life, I've got to take it all. So I've got to take your relationships. I've got to take your physical good and bad. I've got to take your mental good and bad. I've got to take your financial good and bad. Yeah. Some people just want the bits. You know what I mean? People like the view, they don't like the climb. Yeah. You know what I mean? They just like the thing that they think you've got, but not how you had to get there. I wanted to ask you about, as a minute ago we were talking about lads' holidays.
Yes.
And then that made me start thinking about the impact we have on other people, we're just talking about now, and personal growth. So how you change, because we spoke earlier about falling in love with a new person every 5 years, different chapters of life. How does that work for you guys with relationships and friendships? Because there's one of my favourite memes is the caterpillar sat with the butterfly. Have you seen it? Where the caterpillar says to the butterfly, "You've changed." And the butterfly's like, "Yeah, we're supposed to." Yeah. But you have that with friends. People you've grown up with, and that's the reason I relate that back to lads' holidays. I didn't do any of the lads' holidays. I went on 2 stag do's. One was my own, and one with my brother-in-law, which I feel like he was obliged to invite me to because he was marrying my sister. Do you know what I mean? But I've been invited on loads, and I've just always gone, "Nah, brother, not for me." I mean, I'm also nervous about A, taking drugs again, and B, drinking, because I've not drank since I was 18, so I'm nervous about those sort of things. But also, you outgrow people. Not because you're better than them, just because you want something a little bit different. No better or worse, just different. And honestly, sometimes I envy people that have been happy since they're 18. I'm not happy. I have to work hard every day to find my happiness. Because I wake up in the morning and I'm immediately, the cat and nine tails out, I'm waking myself, you piece of shit, you didn't got this stuff. Look at your list of to-do stuff. This constant feeling of being behind. I've got to do all this stuff. I said I want to do all this stuff. Get up, go to the gym. And you're whipping yourself all the goddamn time. But how do you deal with how you've changed over time? And because when you said the winter arc, it made me think of something I've spoken about before, and I've heard it on a few other podcasts as well, this loneliness chapter, where you outgrow the people
That's part of it.
that you knew before.
That's
Talk
part of
to me about that. How does that manifest? Because like you said, you two didn't know each other. Now you align on things. Now you know each other, but who have you, the old Dunbar's number, who's left your life? I haven't got to name names, but who's left your life to make room for the people you're with now?
I don't mind starting with this because I briefly mentioned it to Ryan as we had a little break then. I've probably not been the best friend past couple of years, and I felt myself sort of going to this, like, Chris Williamson calls it a monk mode.
Yep.
Where the entire purpose of a monk mode is to go in, work on yourself, get better, but then the purpose of it is to re-emerge back into society again. And I've been emerged and really immersed in that monk mode for probably far too long, in terms of I probably do.
How do you know far too long?
I feel it. I feel it's not until I get my head above the parapet, I look around and I go, right, who's left? And I'm like...
You said it was the messages you sent out over Christmas
yeah,
as well.
I come to message one of my friends just to say, like, Happy New Year. I've not messaged him since March.
Okay.
And I'm like, what a shit friend I am.
Why?
Because
I get it. And the problem is we're speaking into an echo chamber here, because I think I'm also a terrible friend, but it depends how you define a friend. It's tough.
Yeah, you touched on it earlier, where if I'm spending time with someone else, that is time away from Ted and Amy.
Yeah.
They are absolute world. They are, where
They're the
where I waste a lot of my time. Yeah, they're the non-negotiables. But in order for me to be probably the best and a more well-rounded person, I probably need them friendships around. I used to play a lot of football, and just being around that team environment, taking the piss out of your friends and just having a laugh, and I miss that. I really miss it. And I've, purposely stepped away from it because I want to be there for Ted a little bit more on a Saturday morning, and,
So do you mourn that a little bit? It sounds like you're mourning a past version of yourself.
Yeah, a little bit. And I think I liked who I was in that period. I felt very playful, very witty. And I'm like, no, I want that again. I want to feel that way again. And it's going to be a little bit more of a conscious effort to not just go for a coffee with someone, not just go for a pint with someone. Why don't we just do something? Let's just, I don't know, let's go and play some darts. Let's just get together.
So what are you going to sacrifice to do that?
Probably an evening a week, an evening every other week.
Away from what?
Away from what I currently do, which is this free time, so I'll work. Or I'll be with Amy and Ted. So for me...
Because there's no solutions, only trade-offs.
No, exactly.
Something is going to have to go, so I can now do this.
I've seen some stats, which is you only truly need one true friend. One true friend is better than 10 surface level friends.
100%.
And I have 1,000,000% got a handful of friends who I'd tell anything to. And I feel really lucky to have that. And
I think I've got 3.
Yeah.
I see them probably once or twice a year. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I've probably got the same. Probably 2 or 3 who, yeah.
It's if I think you match, like, if how much you need from our friendship to fill up your social cup matches me, then we'll be okay. If you need more than me and I'm not delivering it for you, there's going to be a rub there. There's going to be a, you message me at Christmas. Oh, still alive, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, now you want to, I thought you were dead.
I feel like I've got this rule, which is almost, I don't know, like with lads, I think lads are a little bit different. You cannot see each other for months.
Yeah.
You get together and it's like nothing's changed.
Yes.
I feel like girls can...
Every day. They're messaging.
Every day.
What are you telling him?
Yeah.
What are you messaging? Not like you tell him a secret, but like you're messaging her every morning. To tell her what?
Yeah.
What in God's green earth is so important or interesting about their life?
So true.
Yeah. I feel like
But that's not a bad thing.
I feel like
part of me envies that. They must have a closeness that we don't have.
Sisterly love feels different to brotherly love. And
Yeah.
I've always sort of felt that. It's a weird one. I think it's for blokes, it's when you go through something hard with someone. Like some of my biggest bonds have been with people who I've been through some shit with. Like, I've supported friends through breakups. I've had friends support me through, the entire process of getting married, which is quite stressful, or it can be. And even just like my best friend, Joff, I'll shout him out because he's absolutely unbelievable. He's a former Royal Marine. He's a former Royal...
Beat me up. All right, I love you.
No, he's a former Royal Marine, and like I just love him to bits. And we fell out of contact for a long time.
But he sounds like that sort of... He's a Royal Marine, for God's sake. He's that salt of the earth, dark humour, funny.
We're chalk
You
and
know
cheese.
he can get it done.
I feel like we're chalk and cheese, and I've said to Ryan a lot, I'm pretty good long distance stuff physically. Joff's really strong, so we train together, complement each other well. Joff's a little bit quieter, and then socially I'm probably a bit more of a talker. So that works really well.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's different. I feel like opposites attract in that respect.
But he sounds like because you share those physical relationships with him. He's one of my guys on the podcast, Gerard Mann, awesome bloke. He talks about salty friends because there's a thing about salty firefighters. And you know the aspect of a man is worth his salt. Have you heard that statement? Do you know where that comes from?
A man is worth his sword.
Salt.
Okay. No.
Because salt used to be a currency, didn't it?
Yeah. So salt.
They used to go to war over salt, didn't they, back in the day?
So they used to. So soldiers in, I'll get this all wrong, somebody Google it, they'll go, guys, full of shit. Soldiers used to march the empire and they would get paid in salt because when they're marching and sweating constantly, you guys know like hydration isn't just about drinking water, it's about having minerals and salts and all this sort of stuff, otherwise you can't keep going. So they would get lots of food, but the reason like on ships and stuff they would get scurvy and stuff was because they weren't getting minerals and vitamins and things like that. So a man, if he was a soldier, he would get paid in a weight of salt as well. And in different empires, they got paid in cacao or chocolate in a different culture, which I can't remember. But they used to have a little pouch on the front that they would carry salt or they would carry chocolate in. And if you were worth more, if you were a valuable soldier, you'd be paid in salt. And that's where it came from. A man is worth his salt. He'd be paid an allotment of salt. And also that analogy relates itself to building relationships with me. When you go through something tough together, like a relationship, life experience, like firefighting, you go to a tough job, or like friends, you did an Ironman together, you did a High Rocks together, we did the British Firefighter Challenge together, where we have bled together, we have exerted, we've sacrificed salt, we've sweat together. And that is one thing where I think men are different. Men bond through difficult experiences. We need to go through. You want to have been in the foxhole with someone and going, fucking hell, mate, I know when you went through that divorce, or he went through his Marine thing, or you were growing up together and you didn't have any money or whatever. It's like those are the things that you bonded through. You laugh about the time that your house was leaking, or he crashed his car, or you got lost and you both lost your wallets in Manchester or whatever. That was the hilarious catastrophe that you bonded through. Or you both went through Marine training, or like ours, if you're on the same selection course together, you know each other forever. You don't work on the same station for 20 years and you go, oh yeah, Brad, we went through selection together. And it's just that bond, because I know who you are because I've seen you at your worst. And that's how we bond. Whereas I feel like, and again, obviously I don't know, but women obviously bond through something different, whereas we almost have a bond that gets created. And I personally, and I think men in general, we don't need, as we've already said, that constant touch base. I don't need to touch base with you every day or even every week. Like, and again, you guys might say, fucking, never to see that guy again. But I think I could easily not see you now for 6 months. And if I message you, oh, dude, yeah, a podcast was great 6 months ago, blah, blah, blah. By the way, I'm at this fitness seminar in Manchester. No way I'm there as well. I could happily go for a meal with both of you and Hillary and your partners, or just the three of us. And we'd have a scream. We could spend a weekend together, absolutely. And then if I never saw you again, I wouldn't mourn it.
No.
I wouldn't be like, oh my God, I hope he's okay. I'd be like, awesome bloke, right laugh.
Yeah.
But I don't need to speak to him every day or even every month. But then for some people, that could probably be quite lonely. Like, how have you developed? Because when you say about being a professional, you must have had to consciously or unconsciously separate yourself from people that don't share those values because they don't understand it. You say, I've got to get home and edit this podcast. Bro, we're going to play another game. Are you not coming on the stag do this weekend? You've got a what? You've got a podcast. You're going to talk into the void. How much do you get paid for it? Well, nothing really. Don't understand it. People don't understand it. It's like trying to explain global goals to local people. They're not going to get it. They don't understand it. And they're not going to understand it. You've got to almost just persistently go on with it. So how have you dealt with people that don't share your aspirations?
Simple. Cut them off.
Fuck them off. No.
Yeah, basically. It's
cold.
We like to be very romantic and emotional with these things, but I think if you're going to achieve anything and go anywhere and make anything work long term, you have to be quite ruthless to a certain degree. I think going back to what you were saying about the...
Ruthless is a provocative word, though.
Ruthless, yeah, maybe it's true. Maybe it's honest. Is it more of a better word to use?
Decisive.
Intentional, whatever it might be.
Exactly.
People want to be exceptional, but they don't like being the exception. They don't like being different from other people.
Yeah, I think that. But again, that's what plays into not being true to yourself and your identity. Like, I've always loved building things, growing things, and this podcast is part of that. So if someone doesn't understand it, doesn't really matter to me because it means more to me. It means a lot to me. It's something I'm willing to put my free time into and sacrifice other things in my week for. And going back to what we were saying about like the winter arc and stuff like that, and you know, just isolating yourself, going into monk mode. When you do that, it's a good filtration system sometimes for getting rid of people that are on the fringes and aren't really that important. And so when you do emerge back into society, like you said, you can then be quite picky and choosy with who you let back in, and they'll sometimes, most of the time, make themselves known. I've got
they do make themselves known. I always say it's like when the tide goes out, you realise who's naked. Or if I say like flood the place and you realise who can swim. You start having a conversation on a different topic, or you start talking about the different goals and different. You realise some people have not got any, and you've got to have that plan for yourself.
Yeah. I'll tell you a story that's it's quite a personal story and a deep one, and something that I've kind of spoke to quite a few personal friends around, but not really told many people. So putting it on the podcast is quite big for me. But
come on. He's not allowed to edit this. You've got to call him out. He's got to leave it. What
It's too long to edit.
He has no control of the editing. It's all right.
Okay.
So I had my best friend in Sheffield, basically, who is no longer a friend anymore, because this is a lad I went to uni with. He became a coach before I did, started doing really well from it, and I was working in Medwall All Saints at the time, and we used to train together. We both grew up kind of going to the gym and training and having some great sessions, and he said to me, look, you could do this, you could do coaching if you wanted to. So he's the person who actually got me into personal training. And over time, he had his family, and you know, when that happens, you see him a little bit less and less and less. And I was obviously still really keen to kind of meet up with him, so I would message him, and I'd see him when I could. And when we met up, it was great. It was like we, you know, exactly the same. Like you'd never been at a party. It was just awesome. We had some great chats about business and family and work and all that kind of stuff. And he was someone who was so on my level, and I really valued those chats. But then after a while, there was a lot of like me putting the foot forwards, me doing a lot of the organising. Amy picked up on it a lot of it and said, you know, he cancels a lot on you, you know, that's not right, I'm not sure. I couldn't really see it, because I was
Fair
like...
play to her for saying that.
Yeah, she was quite good at that. But again, girls pick up on these things better than we do. They understand it. Whereas I was like, no, he's all right, he can't make it, it's fine. No. I'll rearrange it. Then I kind of went through the messages, I was like, yeah, you know what, it is always me kind of reaching out. And then, so I did what was called...
I have a 3-to-1 rule. Whereas if I'm messaging you 3 times and having to get one back, there's a discrepancy there. And also you get what you tolerate. Because again, you're teaching that person.
Yeah.
So it's a
my
rule. Time is not worth it.
I did my own test. And you've heard of a stress test on a bank. So a bank will do a stress test to kind of see if the economy changes and if thing goes tits up, how good will their bank survive?
Yeah. If everyone tried to draw their money out today, what's the crack?
Yeah.
Are we going to die?
Exactly. So I did a stress test on our relationship.
Yeah.
And I said, right, I'm not going to message him until he messages me. And
I do this with dating. When I was dating, you have to.
Yeah.
Otherwise you become needy.
Yeah, exactly.
Hang on a minute. I've messaged her 4 times. Needy.
Yeah.
Not. What she doesn't message me.
It's important that you do these things occasionally.
Let it go.
And those people who want to come back in will make themselves known. So I did it for 6 months. Didn't hear him for 6 months, which is not uncommon. We've been that length of time before. But then my daughter was born, and I was like, I've kind of got to let him know now. So messaged him.
No.
He came over. He
Cracked.
Mr. I crumbled. I'm sorry. So he came over. He met Harlow, and it was awesome. And it was just near the New Year. So it was kind of like, I think it was 2023. It was end of 2023. So end of 2022, going into 2023. So. I said, right, for the New Year, I'm going to start it again. I'm not going to message him. Messaged him happy for Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that stuff. Didn't message him. I haven't spoken to him in 2 years.
Wow.
Has messaged me. And within that time, unfollowed me on Facebook, unfollowed me on Instagram, cut all ties.
You do post some shit, right? Going for
I can't
pot calling the kettle black.
But it was just a weird one where I was like, he's not seen what I'm doing here. He's not seen the fact that it was all me, and he's not wanting to, instead of getting back in contact, he's gone the other way. And I know what's happened. He's probably made some stories up in his head of like, he's not talking to me. He was the one who always talked. And actually, it was just a simple transactional thing where I was making more transactions than he was. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to put a stress test on it, and it kind of went south. But in a weird way, it is what it is.
It's okay.
It's
okay.
Exactly. Those things. That's someone that you don't really want.
Each other. I haven't got a connection anymore.
Exactly, yeah. And that it is fine. That's part of life, and you'll know that from having a family's a game changer, because when you have a family, they take priority. They take up all your free time. And you go for this period of like letting the people in that you really want to be close to, your kids as well. Like they're the people that you want around you. So it was good. It's tough in the moment to accept you're losing someone who's like a friend. But it's sometimes a tough thing about like breakups and relationships as well. I've got a mate who went through one recently, and it's like, I'm not just losing a girlfriend, I'm losing like a friend. You're losing like someone you spend all the time with. And you're speaking with this person every day, and then overnight, suddenly, we're not together, we're not talking now. And you lose that thing. It's kind of like that with a friend. Even if you only speak to them a few times in the year, you kind of feel like it's part of my year that I value that conversation. It was difficult to let that go, but also there's a reason the transactions are on my end. Something's missing.
Experiences die as well with it, because like, you'll always turn to them and go like, I'm with a new missus now. I was married for 10 plus years before, and sometimes you'll find yourself turning and go, remember when we went to? Oh no, you weren't there. That was with somebody else. Yeah. Or your friend. You've got all these memories that you had with that guy, and you're trying to retell the story now, and you're like, he tells it better than me, and I'm probably misremembering it, and like I can't remember how it went, and it feels like, did that thing even happen? Like, I shared this entire life with somebody before, and that was my person. I told her everything. I told her my deepest, darkest secrets. She was with me as I came through addiction. Like, this is someone who knows so much about me. And now, she doesn't hate me. We've got a very amicable relationship, but we're never going to be there again. Because we don't want to be there again. But it's like, you've shared all of that with that person. But if you want to make contact with the person, you'll do it. Like, my missus now, when she was going through dating and stuff, she got into a really good rule, and luckily I reinforced it, was if he wanted to see me, he would. And I always say this, like, if you got a new car, when you got that Porsche, and you were really busy, I'm sure you earned a lot of money to get it, who had to force you to make time to drive it? No one. I'll bet you had everything to do that day, but if you got the new PlayStation game, or you got the new car, what's the chances you're going to find time that day to drive it or play it?
I don't drive a lot. I probably, if I do 6,000 miles a year, I think it's rare really, because I work from home, my gym's up the road. I might go to Liverpool or Manchester, once a month, see my mum and dad. But I found time.
You'll always make time for the things you want to do.
I found places to go when I first got it, just to drive it, because you want to be inside it.
You want to be inside it?
I mean, it's funny using that phrase around women, but...
No, 100%. If you don't want to be with someone, you don't want to spend time with them, there's no point trying to force yourself to do it, because you're like, well, this thing is just, it's come to its natural end. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. Well,
it's a really, really challenging one.
Coming on to the thing you were saying a second ago, I used to go to Amsterdam every single year before my little one was born, and we used to have go there and have a good time. We loved the city, but I'd been
Lads
there...
holiday or missus?
No, just with girlfriends. But I've been there with like multiple different girlfriends. So, well, not all at the same time. Let me clarify that.
What's the ratio?
So I went there with like 3 different girlfriends, Amy included.
Yeah.
But
did they all know you'd been there with some of them?
Yeah, I didn't tell them. I was like, I've been there every year. I was quite open. But
isn't it weird if someone says like, "Oh, I don't want to go there because you went there with Helen," and you're like,
"Yeah,
who cares?"
But I was just going.
What, were you a virgin before you met me? No. So let's get a grip, shall we?
Yeah. But I used to say to them, "Look, have you been to Amsterdam?" I'm like, "No, I've been there before." They go, "Who you go with?" I went with ex-girlfriend. But I said, "No." They'd be maybe a bit funny, but like, and I'd tell them, I'd sell it to them. I'd say, "Oh, there's amazing meat restaurants we can go to." I was a bit younger, so it'd be like, there's some special coffee shops I can go to and have a good time. But I'd mess up sometimes, and I'd say, "Oh, do you remember that time when we came last year? And that place, that meat restaurant?" And Amy would go, "That wasn't with me."
Have you misnamed them?
Yeah. Misnamed what? The
missus?
No.
Have you not? No. I did it once.
Did you?
I didn't call her the old name. I called her some variation of Hillary, and it wasn't Hillary, and I was like, "Oh my god, Jesus!" Like your arse just drops out, doesn't it? I just called you something else. Luckily, it wasn't. I didn't call her my ex-wife's name, but it's easy to do when you're talking about an old memory, and you go,
"You've done that for so many years."
Me and Sarah, and she's like, she's listening along, and you're halfway through the story, and you're like, "I said Sarah, didn't I?" I said Sarah, and you're like, "Oh my god!"
I actually did it. There was a nickname I used to have for one of my ex-girlfriends.
You don't want to get someone's last name wrong, would you?
I don't know why.
Embarrassing shit. Imagine that.
That's being edited out, right? That's the final straw. That's the final straw. It's out.
We'll just keep mentioning it. Too much of an awkward edit. Carry on.
So I used to have a nickname for it's a pet name for an old girlfriend. I used to call Pug. And then I called...
Endearing.
One. I know, yeah.
He struggled to breathe, snorted a lot, shuffled around.
Massive eyes.
Yeah, massive eyes.
I don't know how it got onto the Pug.
Bit of a misbreed.
It was... she loved it anyway. That's the main thing. But I ended up calling another girlfriend Pug, and she was like, "Why did you call me that?" And I had to come with some mad story. I wasn't honest. I wasn't honest in the moment. I didn't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, that's the pet name for my old girlfriend." I just said, oh, well, you know I love pucks. So, like, and I went down this rabbit hole of excuses. But, yeah, made that mistake for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, separating yourself from people that you've outgrown, super hard. Super hard.
I feel like it's a topic that's not discussed as much in terms of just moving on with friendship groups and even just how your life changes as you become a parent as well.
Well, because you start to have a plan for yourself.
Yeah.
Your life plan, your family's plan. I always say, if you don't have a plan for yourself, you'll fit into somebody else's plan. And guess what they've got planned for you? Nothing. Yeah, because you're just their mate. They want you to be successful and happy, but to what extent, it doesn't really matter. They don't really care. And it's the same with organisations. Your boss, your senior leader, your person that's mentoring you, your colleague. They want you to be happy. But if you died tomorrow, my life would carry on. I'd be absolutely fine. You know what I mean? I'd probably go, oh, dude was really, really nice. I liked his glasses. He was an articulate fella, you know, but he's dead now. So, and I feel that you have this a lot with first responders. I spoke about that process of grief with your dad before. Like, first responders, you can get something called empathy fatigue, and pretty much all of us end up getting it, where I've been to work today and I've cut 2 children out of that car. One was dead. The other's got life-changing injuries. I come home and Hillary says, Sarah ate my sandwich at work today. And, oh, God, I can't stand it. And you're like, oh, yeah, I don't care. I don't care. Yeah. On the spectrum of dead children to my sandwich got eaten today, I'm struggling to engage with some empathy on you on this one, because that is a champagne problem. But to you, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And I struggle with my daughter sometimes, like, you know, when you're a little kid, friend says something to you at school, blah, blah, whatever. Life is over. The clouds are falling, you know, the earth is going to swallow you. But to you, you're like, who cares? Do you know what I mean? And it's tough.
I've struggled with that a lot. Like, you know, when you...
Especially when you're doing big business stuff as well. And it's really, who cares?
You've got this money coming in, this money going out. You've got bank books to balance, things going on, clients leaving, coming. You've got all these things to manage. Accountants on your case.
Which Italian should we go to on Friday?
Yeah.
I don't care.
My sister, you won't believe what she said. I'm just like...
Really?
And
Did she say, I'm never going to message you again? Because if it wasn't now, I'm not interested.
I've struggled with that for many years, but I think...
It's hard, isn't it? Because you've got to stay engaged. And you do care.
I do absolutely care. But I think you're absolutely right. I think it was a Chris Williamson podcast that put it into perspective a little bit. And he said, everyone's problems are relative, you know. You're going to get teenagers who've got spots and it's the worst thing in the world, but in the grand scheme of things, they'll go. Who cares? You're a teenager for a short period of time. No one's bothered about it.
No one cares.
But then you've got guys who are going bankrupt for millions and millions and millions of pounds. They're falling from grace. They're losing it all. You know, those two problems in that person's world might seem completely different in the grand scheme of things, but to them, they are the most important thing and worrying thing right now. They're keeping them up at night. So... You got to meet,
it's not a competition.
It's the meeting them where they're at. Yeah. Like, meet somewhere with their problems as well. Like, if you're a good partner, it doesn't matter how insignificant it is. You'll listen, and I think again something that
it's understanding what's important to them as well. Like for me, my wife likes acts of service. You know, she likes to come home.
Oh, love language.
Houses clean. You know, I've sent her a few houses on Rightmove to be like, I really like these, darling. Yeah. She'd much rather me do that than like massage her feet.
And it's important.
Like straight up.
It's important to understand that. Yeah.
And I don't think people spend enough time probably understanding that or working on the relationship. I always compare it to, again, getting all fitnessy with it, a relationship with food. If you don't spend a time working on your relationship with food, if it's a bit distorted, it's like being in a relationship and not working on that. Yeah. It's going to go stale. It could go toxic. It could get a little bit transactional.
We talk a lot about that, how I receive love, because if my way, it's the same. We can talk about receiving friendship, receiving relationships. I want you to feel loved, okay? So my way of giving you that is I'm going to hold your hand all the time, I'm going to kiss you in public, and you might be like, dude, I feel smothered, I feel a bit suffocated, you're clingy, I don't like this. And that's the problem when you first start dating someone. It's like having these conversations about, or the first time you start with a friendship, or the first time you start managing somebody in a business. You know, how, as my line manager, what can I do within my sphere of control and my sphere of influence to help you? And knowing what is appropriate for me. Because if I want to make you feel empowered or I want to make you feel secure, well, if I want to make you feel secure as your line manager, I might end up micromanaging you. I'm checking on everything. I'm checking you're okay. I'm emailing you every morning. I'm messaging you at the end of the day. How was your day? And you might be like, oh, goddamn God, just keeps checking on me all the time, micromanaging me all the time. Same way with the relationship. Have those conversations around what is your love language. How do you like is it acts of service, is it physical intimacy? I'm enormously tactile. Like both of you offered your hand when we were first walked in and say I'm a hugger. I will hug people. I try and read the audience, and someone, they don't want to hug, fair enough. But I'm a very tactile person, and if you don't get that from your relationship, say, I like you to, I'm not, smother me or anything like that. Putting your hand on my shoulder, give me a kiss on the cheek. If you come into the room and you just got home from somewhere and I'm in the middle of the podcast, come and give me a kiss on the cheek or something like that. That's how I receive love. And understanding that in relationships and understanding how somebody receives those things. Same with the client. How do you want to be supported? Do you want daily messages? Do you just, because some people are like, you don't need to send me a goddamn aphorism every day. I don't need the motivational quote in the mornings. Yeah. Some people might like that. Most people don't like that. They just think it's you're spamming them with rubbish. Some people need that. Yeah. How much granularity do they need? How much motivation do they need in the session? That's why, like when I was coaching people, I preferred to work with more professional athletes. So I worked with a few semi-professional boxers and a few people that were a couple in field hockey, a couple in running. They didn't need motivating. Great. Because I don't want to I've done that bit. I've stood in the park getting everybody G'd up to do the tyres session. I want to work with an athlete where I can prescribe you a program and then I can come, and I learned a lot of this when I was watching coaches in Loughborough University. Like you'd see the people that were coaching athletes there, and probably the same for you, when they'd be sat in a chair in the corner watching everybody on the lifting platforms warming up and doing their thing, and you're like, that dude's the coach. Whereas come on everybody, 1, 2, 3. It's like, no, this is not bloody aerobics. Yeah.
Mr. Motivator.
No, Mr. Motivator.
Have you ever seen the S&C pose?
No.
The S&C pose. They'll coach like this. 9 out of 10 strength and conditioning coaches will coach like this. They'll just cross their arms, stand and watch. But I used to be really cynical about that. I mean, it's not until you go, well, yeah, like you said, their job is not to motivate. Their job is to look really
I'm
critically.
I'm looking for the 1% for you.
Yeah. They're looking really critically and saying, that takeoff on that long jump, it needs to be snappier. I won't spot that. I'd be like, good run. Good jump.
Because that's what the athlete wants. I want you to record me 50 times and tell me to get from good to great. I need to know these things to get from the 97th percentile to the 98th percentile.
Oh, and some clients want you to talk to them like shit. Like, tell me I'm shit.
I'm like that with people that manage me, though. I say to people, and it's not a surprising conversation here, I need strong leadership. I need someone to paint good for me. Tell me what good looks like. I don't need constant reward and, hey, Pete, high five. Here's a little letter I'll put on your desk for you. But I want to know, Pete, I expect this to be done by 9 o'clock on Friday. I want it in an email, or I want that, or I want the team ready, or I want the exercise set up at that building in this manner, because I need that strong leadership.
We spoke about this on another podcast, didn't we? I had a client who messaged me after a session and said, Ryan, loving the sessions, great, but I need you to give me less praise. And I was like, I've never had anyone message me that before. And I said, what do you mean, mate? I thought we were, all right. Is everything okay? He goes, love it, but if you give me that freedom to be like, you're doing great, you're doing amazing, I'll take my foot off the gas. I need you to put your foot on my neck a little bit and tell me that actually this area isn't good. Highlight more of the things where I need to improve rather than the things I'm doing really well, and you'll get more out of me. And I was like, wow, that's really nice that he was, number one, understands himself. He knows what his kind of best cues for being coached are, and number 2, can articulate that and give and feel confident enough to go to the coach and say, this is how you're going to coach me best. I think not enough people who get coached are able to do that. They'll kind of, because everyone's saying every client's got different things and styles. Coaches are the same. Coaches, some will stand like this, some will be the happy Mr. Motivator jumping around, and it's all down to like our own individual personalities to a certain degree, I think. And not enough clients, I think, are able to kind of articulate how they would like to be coached. But I get it as well, because maybe if you've not had a coach before, you're not too sure about kind of how the setup is, what happens. But I think you can normally tell.
But you have had a coach before. And this is the point I'm making, because coaching is a relationship, and it comes right back to because all of this is relationships, and it's back to what I said earlier. Uncommunicated expectations are premeditated resentments, because if you don't tell someone, even in intimate relationships, I would say to my missus, like, we're coaching each other. I'm training you how to treat me, because you want to make me happy. These are the things that make me happy. I want to make you happy, so you need to tell me the things that make you happy. But when we get into a professional relationship, we find it easier sometimes to state those things, because this is transactional. I'm paying you for this, so I want it to be good. But you're investing more time, resources, and even money in your personal relationship, your intimate relationship, than you are in anything. So the more uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have, the more happiness you're going to achieve. If you avoid the uncomfortable conversations, you're not going to get all of the juice out of the tube, because you're constantly holding back. I don't want to offend you. I don't want to upset you. And I think a lot of people will leave a client or leave a coach, because they're not getting what they want, but they haven't been brave enough to go, I don't really like that. You're giving me too much praise. I need more of this. And they've just gone, it's kind of not for me. And then 2 weeks later, you see they're working with another coach and you're like, well, what was different?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying come back to me. I'm just saying help me as an exit interview.
Yeah.
Where did we fail?
Most of it, I think, is understanding your preferences, how you work the best. And that comes from a bit of experimentation.
Yeah.
Trying about all sorts of stuff and being like, that's fantastic for me. I absolutely love that, and taking that ownership. I feel like you'll have come across this author before, but there's an ex-Navy SEAL called Jocko Willink.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah.
I followed him for a long time.
All of his lessons of leadership and extreme ownership and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, his podcast that he runs now.
Extreme ownership was a game changer.
He's got one called Leadership Field Manual that I still read now, because even though full-time coach, I still see it as, well, it's leadership. Technically, I need to
100%.
understand what's going on here. And
Dichotomy of Leadership is another book of his. Great book.
And that probably addressed a lot of the issues that he raised from extreme ownership, and just being aware that actually you do need to take ownership of not just how you feel, but what your preferences are. How do you get the best out of you? How do you get the best out of a relationship?
But you know what I love about him as well, and this is something I've actually tried to do with the podcast, and I'm interested to hear what your guys' thoughts on this is. When you stop doing the thing, what are you going to do next? So preparing for that retirement. It also brings us on to that fitness pension that we were speaking about earlier as well.
I'd love to talk about that.
Preparing for retirement. Like, a lot of people leave the emergency services and they feel that death of an identity that we've said before. People leave being a PT or a coach, feel that death of an identity. You guys could run the Fit Dads podcast for the next 40 years. You'll still be a dad. You might even follow the Fit Granddads podcast by then. Who knows? Yeah, there's longevity in that. Because you may not always want to go to the cold gym at 6 a.m. to coach the client. You know, I stopped coaching people because I was coaching from 4 a.m. till 7 a.m., then going and working 12-hour day shift. Then I was coaching from 8 p.m. till 11 p.m. in the evening, rinse and repeat, and doing it the next day. And I'm like, well, all that morning time, I'm not getting any time with my daughter. And the evening time, I'm not getting any time with them either. So I'm work, around work. And I'm like, when is this going to change? Whereas with the podcast, and saying related back to Jocko. Jocko hasn't been in the military for 10 plus years, but everyone sees him as a military person. Yeah. And back to the SAS thing, Ant Middleton did 4 years in Special Forces, I think he did. 4 years. If you'd only been a PT for 4 years, would you claim him to be an expert? I'm not saying he is not an expert. He knows a lot more than me, could kick my ass, all of that sort of jazz, yeah? But when I was on there with, Jason Fox and Mark Billington, he is one of the greatest leaders I've ever had the privilege of speaking with and spending a little bit of time with after the show. And he is actually a retired, proper, I'll get his rank wrong, I apologise. He's a proper retired general from it. He was in charge of the Special Forces units. And he did like 25, 30 years in it. But Ant Middleton was the one that was the star, which is absolutely fine. And what I love about that and the Jacko analogy and what I'm trying to do is you can create something beyond just the thing you do, so then you can continue it into your retirement. You guys could keep doing this and you could coach personal trainers long after you want to do stuff that's on the floor. But also, echoing back on that fitness pension, what are you doing now that isn't just about today? How are you preparing yourself? And also the concept of retirement. In the Western world, retirement means I'm going to retire from my job, sit around and do nothing. Retirement is just a Western approach. In other communities, someone will just change their role in the community. They don't stop working and live off the state. They just still continue to be useful in a different role within the community. Us, we think we get to 50. I know a lot of people that left the fire service at 50, 55, sat at home, did nothing. If you don't use it, you lose it. You don't stimulate your body, you don't stimulate your mind, it will die. And those people died. They actually genuinely died because they sat in their chairs for 2 years and the bodies just stopped living because it didn't have a purpose. It didn't have a reason to get up in the morning. Do you know what I mean? And I also think that with your body, like, what are you doing now? What would the you of tomorrow want you today to do? Do you know what I mean? What would the me of 60 want the me of 35 to do? My heroes are when I go into the gym and there's a guy who's about 78 years of age. And I got into the gym the other day and he was on the bike and he already had a heavy sweat on him. And I was just going in for like a moderate recovery day. I was going to do 30 minutes on the bike. So I got on the bike, put my 30 minutes timer on it and started getting up to my tempo about 132 per kilometre or whatever it was. So I was I'm going to hold this. And then as I was going, he's sweating. I thought, this dude's got to get off soon. Like, he was already sweating when I came in. And I got to my 30 minutes and he was still going. So I was like, shit, I've got to keep going now because this guy's like 30 years older than me. So I kept going for another 25 minutes. And then as soon as he got off, I did it for about another minute. But before he left, I wanted to talk to him. So I stopped and got off and went, brother, just, sorry. I said, I was only going to do 30 minutes on that. He was like, oh, sorry, like, to distract us. I said, no. You inspired me. I was like, just tell me a little bit about yourself. And he was like, oh, well, similar to you, mate. He says, I coach a football team on a Sunday, and the guy that does the SAQ warm-up for the kids is in his 80s. And he says, and I try and keep up with him around the edge of the course. And he's like 10 years older than me. So he's in his 70s, and his idol is a guy in his 80s. Wow. That's more than twice my age. Yeah? That is my hero. I want to keep climbing Ben Nevis when I'm 80. So what do I need to do now so that when I do retire, I can still do all the things that I say I want to do?
Yeah. Wow. It's the long-term thinking, short and steady rather than quick and fast. I think come back to someone like maybe your younger days. Your mindset, I'm sure, wasn't around longevity.
Live fast, die young.
Yeah.
Stupid. Who says that shit?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I used to say
One of my favourite guys online at the moment is Dr. Mike Israel. Do you know who Dr. Mike Israel is?
Yeah.
Great voice online, but he's quite open as well about his steroid use and what he's done in the
Massive
past.
head.
Huge. Like he's got he's got muscles on the side of his head that I've never seen before. It's very square. But, great.
He was on Modern Wisdom recently, wasn't he?
He's been on Modern Wisdom a few times. Yeah,
cool guy, funny guy as well.
Yeah.
Character.
Like a very
it's like deadpan, isn't it?
Deadpan, but also he's got like a weird, like sexual sense of humour.
He always slides in those silly stories that aren't true. But it's like,
very funny. He's super likeable, but he's quite honest as well. He says, "Look, I've been taking steroids for a long, long time, and I'm not here for a long time. I'm here for a big impact." And I think it's interesting because he's not got any kids. He's got a missus. He's got no intention of having any kids. He's just like, I want to live my life. In a certain degree, he's being true to himself. He's not trying to, live up to the expectations of society or what the world thinks he should do. He's happy building a business, taking steroids, having an amazing physique.
But is he telling himself he's happy? Is he convincing himself? I don't know. I don't know Mike Israel personally, of course. I'm only listening to him and the version of him that he wants to show to us. But when you get past a certain point, because there's a big thing about unintended childlessness, where you say, I don't want to have kids till I'm older. And then you get to 40 and you've been taking steroids for 25 years and you realise, I've struggled with erectile dysfunction a lot. I don't know if I could even have children anymore if I wanted to have children. Luckily, I've got a child. Yeah, he doesn't have a child. Maybe he can't have children. Hopefully he can, and hopefully he's very healthy and this is a decision he's making of his own volition. But past a certain point, do you have to keep saying that mantra? Otherwise, the alternative is to go, I messed this up. I messed this up. I should have turned left 20 years ago and I kept barreling off the end of that cliff. I don't know.
You don't ever want to admit it. It's hard to admit to people when you get to 40 that, there's this thing inside you that doubt, what should I have done? Should I have just done it?
I don't know.
And I think a lot of
kids
people...
aren't for everybody.
I've got a friend at the moment, I'm not going to say his name.
You've got a friend?
I've got
I don't believe that.
I've got a couple. They don't really like me.
I don't like you, it's okay.
But he has a missus who's probably about, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years older than him. He's early 30s, she's in entering to her 40s now. And then, since day one, they've been together for a good few years. She's always said, I don't want kids. And he's been like, good, I don't want kids either. I'm quite young, you're a bit older. And then as he's got older, I think he's come to the boys a few times and said, actually, you know what, I would maybe entertain the idea of it, but, she doesn't want it, so I'm not going to probe it. But I also think as well, he's probably kidding himself that he's happy with that decision.
It's a trade-off.
And I think it's a difficult one.
People talk about compromise.
If your missus really doesn't want kids, but you want kids, that's a difficult place to be because they're the ones that go through the pain. They've got to go through childbirth.
I could adopt, but still, yes.
This mate that I know, his missus is super fit, has been a PT in the Navy for like 15 years, just Hyroxes like every other week now, travels over the country, over the world for them.
Maybe she can't have children. I don't know. Hopefully she can, but...
Yeah, true. I mean... He's never said that to us, though. Yeah, I think
would
he? Yeah, he would.
Okay.
I think if it was off the cards, off the table.
Sometimes it's easier if it's off the cards.
But she puts things online about there's little memes about not having kids. Yeah. So you wouldn't do that if you were infertile, would you? You would do that if it was a choice that you were making and it was a bit of a joke. There's one she put over Christmas and it was about just some meme from a funny movie where some bloke's kind of kicking a kid.
Yeah.
And then the quote was something like, when you sat downstairs and are surrounded by presents and the kids come running in. And I just thought, that's really hard. I was like, really it was super mean.
Even as parents, we think that sometimes.
Yeah.
Whose kid is that?
Yeah.
Someone get hold of that bloody kid. You know what I mean?
And there was another woman online the other week who hasn't got kids, and she's quite forthright in her opinion about not having kids. And she always refers to them as bin lids, as in kids.
Yeah.
And I think you're being quite provocative there, because loads of people are parents, loads of people have like taken that step, and it's their world essentially. And she probably doesn't realise how offensive she's been with it. It's probably just a bit of a joke to her. But
I think there's a weird concept there about the vilification of parenthood and mums as well. There's a fire chief in the UK, Sabrina Cohen-Hatton, and she wrote a book called The Gender Bias, and she talks about the role of a mum within it, and she talks about obviously the gender disparity and pay gap and all that sort of jazz, and it's all true. But there's a big cost to this boss bitch movement that we've seen over the last sort of 20 years, where, do you love your mum?
of course.
Do you love your mum?
Of course.
Yeah. Often, some of the best people in our lives, so we would say, have looked after us, have provided us with support and all this sort of jazz. So why would we vilify one of the most valued roles in society? And some women look at it like, oh, you've had a kid, you've given up on the rest of us, you've let the rest of us women down. Now, we're three blokes, what the hell do we know? We're stepping into something and we're saying it with a great deal of respect, or certainly I am as well. But I don't think we should vilify women that want to have children. And if you want to commit 5-10 years of your life to being a stay-at-home mum and or stay-at-home parent, it isn't a betrayal of the women's independence. Because also, there's this aspect of population collapse. I don't know if you've read anything on that. Like, there used to be, there's a global number where they talk about the amount of children. So if you and I were in a relationship, how many children would we need to have to keep the population steady?
Ooh. I feel like this is an impossible situation, Pete. But
It's not. It'll annoy you when the answer's obvious.
Right.
So there's two of us. How many people do we need to have to keep it?
You'd have thought two.
Two.
Yeah.
Because you and I have two, it stays the same. Yeah. So 2 is the number that we're aiming for to keep the population steady. Now, it used to be much higher because we're an agricultural society.
Yeah.
More children died younger. We needed more children to work the land. We don't have agriculture now. We've had women's independence where people have children later or not at all. So the number now for the UK is things about 1.4. So for every 2 people, on average, we have 1.4. It means in 30 years there'll be 1.4 people for every 2 people. So you and I, as 2 of us, in 30 years there'll only be 1.4. Now that does cause a lot of problems for society and the economy.
So there's a population regression right now.
Yes, 100%. Which goes against everything we're thinking. We're like, oh no, there's more people everywhere.
I've heard this before. Do you know why that is?
Do I know why it is? Yeah, I think it's down to elements of we're less of an agricultural society. We've increased entrepreneurship. We've increased women's independence, which we should. And it's not all about just women, but their ability to get more professional validation. They want to spend 10, 15 years having their career before they have their children. And then sometimes maybe they decide they don't want children at all. So then we have either intentional childlessness or accidental childlessness, which we spoke about earlier, where now you're 40 and you go, well, actually, I don't want to be a 55-year-old mum. I'm not going to have children now. And then the population gradually shrinks, which means the pensions that everybody's investing in, like in the emergency services, I'm not putting money into my own pension now. I'm actually paying for somebody else's pension. And the model is designed so that the people in 30 years will pay for my pension because the pension is just being invested in stocks and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. There won't be enough people working in society to pay all the pensions. But not only that, because we're living longer, there won't be enough people in the working society to work in all of the care homes. Who's going to look after you when you're old?
All those things are a byproduct of wealth.
Yeah.
So because wealth is going up now across the world globally, and access to like resources, people are having like your 1.5 kids now. Like every couple's having your 1.5 as opposed to
one perfect kid.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Or China, where they did the one child policy for a long time. Right. So a lot of them only had men.
Yeah,
now they've got a real shortage of women. So they're bringing in women from North Korea because they've got nobody to marry the men. They wanted to keep the men because the men hold the wealth and they perpetuate the family name. So we're having this shrinking of people. Now, I know a lot of us would think, well, I could do with a few less people in the world. Okay, you want to volunteer a group? Are we getting a bit close to the Nazi Germany here?
Say, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's a bit of a tough one but I wouldn't mind if there was a few less people in the world. But I don't want to start volunteering people. But you also know we're not making any more land, so it's a finite resource, isn't it?
Am I right in thinking... I feel like I'm going to get the country wrong, but I'm sure South Korea, there's no going back for them now.
Let's welcome our family. Sure. 1 second. Give us a welcome our family.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, come on in, family.
Welcome them home.
because I've dragged us way past all of our time. But if you guys want to run any kind of side-angled project for first responders and functional fitness, don't know if it's your niche or even any interest in it, or it sits into your platforms, I want no money from it, I want no anything off it. But I think of the Firefighters Podcast, like you've just been talking about collaborations, it's a vehicle that lots of things can sit in. There's a professional development aspect in there, there's a mentor and coaching relationship in there, there's a fitness thing in there, there's loads of things that can sit within this vehicle that if somebody else wants to do them, they're more than welcome to do them. Like we've got a drill book that someone's developed, and it's an app where people go on there and learn all the skills and the interview techniques and the knots and lines and all this stuff drill book is. I don't run that. I don't take any money from it, but it's that rising tide raises all the ships.
Yeah.
So if within your thing, do you guys ever have an appetite to run a one-off? So the British Firefight Challenge is an example. They just had 600 people register for it on January the 1st. It's in the end of July. Loads of people, Bronte included, are looking for programs that they can follow. And I'm astonished that nobody is some of the people mess about with it and step into it and all that sort of stuff. But they're usually
it's how big the market is, I guess. And
it's whether it's worth it.
Yeah, sure. I've had people coming to me who mentioned it on Bronte's episode. I had a client come to me and said, in 9 months' time, I'm going to apply for the fire service.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, how long is the kind of interview itself? How long is the kind of selection process?
A lot of them can't pass the bleep test.
Yeah, I know. And when I found out the numbers as well, I was like, well, that's not too bad. He sent me some videos. A lot of them are actually South Yorkshire-based videos. So the guys at some of the fire services here do these videos on YouTube where you can go through and it'll show you the whole kind of practical test, what's involved in the kind of parts afterwards, bleep tests, all that kind of stuff. And so we prepped for 9 months for this, and he did awesome. But on his first try, he failed the maths.
Yeah.
So he did all the practical stuff.
There's loads of elements outside of spirit control.
He massively underestimated. He was like, I got an A in maths at school, so I'm fine. And then when he got given this questionnaire, he was like, I've forgotten it all, basically. So he had to wait a year again to go back in, continue coaching. He actually hired a maths teacher who ended up really helping him with the interview process as well. But it turns out on the day, he did amazing, and then just one guy didn't really take a liking to him. He was an Asian lad, and he didn't really want to pull the race card, but he was kind of half thinking that maybe someone didn't like him. And you just never know. I think it's difficult, but he put almost 18 months at least of work into this. Failed it once, got through to the practical, and then his kind of heart went a little bit. But I feel for him. And there was guys at the selection process that have been there 4, 5, 6 times before.
I applied for 3 years for going.
Did you? Really? Wow.
Yeah. And again, you talk about failed businesses, and again, it's a conversation for a future podcast. So I was just saying, when you're out, like, depending on how you guys feel listening back to this and all this sort of BS, but I'd love to do something with you once every 3 months or something. If it feels like it brings the best out in each of us, if it creates a platform to have good conversation in it, I feel like there's no competition in any of the stuff that we do. But if it's relatable and it's useful, and similar again to the Chris Williamsons and other people of the world, they have those once every 3 months sort of guests where they're like, we all just bring something interesting to discuss, and it creates a platform for those other people. So then when you clip this up, it doesn't even matter who else is in the room, but you know that person brought something good out in you or in you, and you clip that bit with just you in it and go, let's keep having conversations like this. Like Chris, when he does his end of year stuff, and you all have 7 or 8 topics, hacks, fitness, business, life, whatever it might be, good things, interesting things to talk about, and you're all off running your own independent stuff that are not competition for each other. But yeah, have a think about how you feel about it later on. But
no, I think it's a great idea. I think we've kind of got the initial getting to know each other, first general chit chat, main ideas out the way. It'd be good to meet up, I think, and do like specific topics, and have like, right, these are 3, 4, 5 topics we're going to discuss. And
because that conversation of failure, failure and iteration, and people talk about resiliency like it's a punchline. You know what I mean? They talk about it, they don't really understand the comprehension of it, and they'll try something once, but then like the fire service, I've told everybody I was applying for it, then I failed. I'm not fucking doing that again. I'm not going for it. Everyone thought I was going to do it, and I'm so embarrassed. I'm just going to go back to my job at Sainsbury's, and I'm never going to apply for it again. It's part of the goddamn process. You're going to fail. That's it. Like I said, anyone that's never had a big injury or never had a big failure, I'm nervous for them, because this is going to happen. You're going to fail big time at something in your life. And if you don't do it, that's why I think like a conversation at some point around sport, just how much sport should we do in schools? Because sports teaches you leadership, it teaches you setbacks, it teaches you collaboration, it teaches you resiliency, it teaches you so many things. People go, oh, you want to do more sport because you're a PT and you think we should all be fit. No, that's not what it's about. The concept of sport and competitiveness is so valuable. You know, we shouldn't just have those attendance ribbons. You know what I mean?
Watched an awesome movie over the Christmas period. It was called King. Oh, was it called King David? Is it about
King Richard?
King Richard? That's it. Sorry,
it's about. It's my weird thing. I know films. I know actors.
He's an absolute film.
I know films, I don't know actors.
Yeah,
But,
So King Richard is all about the Serena and Venus Williams twins. They weren't twins, but sisters. Yeah, Will Smith's the main actor. Phenomenal. I mean, he just nails the character. When you see him afterwards in the actual live,
is that what that one's called? Yeah, but I've seen that. Where he's taking them to the park and he's got the shopping basket full of balls. And
I saw the trailer. I wasn't too impressed. I just thought, it's about some old bloke who's just doing like he's. And it didn't really appeal to me in the trailer. And then it was on TV, and I just thought, you know what? I'll watch the first 20 minutes, and I was just hooked.
Yeah.
And for anyone who's into like sport, high level achievements, athletes, performance, doing whatever it takes, however you can do it to get to the best version of you. This is a great movie because this guy, from a young age, lived in the ghettos of Compton, like the ghetto, Bloods, Crips, as bad as it can get in America. And he overcame all that to have the most two successful Black American tennis players of all time. He and at the end, there's a nice little kind of thing that crops up, and it says every single thing that Richard Williams did when he had his plan laid out for his kids all came true. Every single thing. And it just goes over some of the situations where they were in these like really run-down tennis courts in Compton and gangbangs would come up and start flirting with his daughters. He didn't have to have 2 daughters, by the way. He had 5 daughters.
Wow.
One of them became a lawyer. One of them actually got shot in Compton, unfortunately. It was a big thing a while ago. And another one, I'm not sure what she did, but they were all super successful. All really successful in a place where they should have failed. And he had this ethos around his family where he created a bubble around them. We are high achievers. We do whatever it takes. And they were so like ostracized in the community that people used to like call the police on them because his neighbours thought he was being like a dictator and a really bad parent. And so one day the social services come around with the police, and he's been out and he's come back and he sees the police outside his house. He's thinking the worst. He runs in and finds out that it's child services. Why are child services at my house? And he gives this amazing speech about how if any house on this street needs police outside, it isn't this one. And he just shouts out, "Girls, spell ostentatious," and they all together spell it out. And it was just this amazing moment where you're like, oh, this guy gets it. He knows what it's about. And he had this bubble, and I think as parents and as fit dads, it was a movie where I was like, God, I can relate to this guy. What an amazing person Richard Williams was.
There's an amazing podcast that I listen to called Evil Genius with Russell Kane.
Evil Genius.
I love Russell Kane. He's proper
comedians in general.
Russell Kane is very
so intelligent,
salt of the earth, but he's so intelligent into like Dungeons and Dragons and shit like that.
And, Jimmy Carr's another one. Whether you like their comedy or not is irrelevant. They are very intelligent people.
The wittiest person, Lee Mack. No one explains the Lee Mack.
So quick.
How sharp
so quick. Evil Genius.
No, but in Evil Genius, they have this theory, which is essentially they vote. They get 3 envelopes, they get facts, they talk about people who are dead, and say, are they evil or are they a genius? And there's some really interesting stuff there. So you might be like, Hitler. I mean, I think they've probably not done Hitler for the reason that he's probably evil. There's some fun ones like Darth Vader and Homer Simpson and stuff. And they have this thing where they say, if anyone's truly a genius, it comes at the cost of being a bit of a shit.
Yeah.
There's certain levels of sacrifice there. If someone's a true genius, they've had to trade off something.
It's the difference between being a good man and a great man. To be a great man, there comes an element of psychopathy, of you have to be able to switch off that emotional switch at times and go, I know this is really going to upset somebody else, but I've got to move on. I know you're not ready for this, we've got to move forwards. You've got to sacrifice good because you're going after great. The people like Winston Churchill, you see some of the letters from Winston Churchill's dad, really scorning and horrible letters.
They're atrocious,
to him. They're atrocious things to read, but that was the cost of greatness. And if you want to be a great man, it will be a very, very difficult thing for you to achieve. But it's the difference between you can go faster alone or further together. And if you want, it's trying to strike that balance, and all of us will sit somewhere differently on that spectrum. How many people do you want to take with you? Do you want to take your daughter and your missus? Great, you can travel probably further and get these people more ingrained and aligned with the things you want, like the example you give with King Richard. He just had to have that bubble of people who got it. And we were on it and we were moving forwards. If you want to try and include all of your friends and all of your class and all of your... not everyone's going to get it. They don't want to be great.
If you take any of the greatest minds in history, Nikola Tesla, Einstein, Plato, a lot of these people are actually, if you deep dive into their history and who they were in society, they were all quite controversial characters.
Yeah.
All did pretty outlandish things, even in their personal lives. A lot of like controversy surrounding them as well.
Yeah.
In business and personal stuff. But no one really remembers that. No one's going, oh, Einstein had an affair with this person. There was like crazy. There was another awesome movie that came out about the atomic bomb last year. What was it called? Oppenheimer was phenomenally, like, he used to have affairs with like loads of women. He knew he was a big star. He did, and he played it. But Oppenheimer's known for one thing: the atomic bomb. Maybe a great mind.
You know the story of the Nobel Prize?
No.
Do you know who Robert Nobel was?
Robert Nobel.
I think it's Robert Nobel.
No.
Invented dynamite.
Oh wow.
He was the harbinger of death. It's the horrible nickname that he got.
Wow.
Because he was just a chemist, and an inventor and whatever. And he invented this thing that was then used to kill so many people. So much death and destruction and blowing up buildings and used in war. And lots of people accidentally killed themselves using dynamite. And he made millions. To today's money, billions. Yeah. But he was known as that thing. And he wanted to buy his name back.
Wow.
He wanted to put money back into the world to buy his name back. So now, when someone says the Nobel Prize, he gave the Nobel Prize to someone that could take humanity further, someone that could do something very good in the world that would move it forward, and he would give him £1 million. You win the Nobel Prize, you get £1 million, you get a big award. Yeah. And that is now what he is known for. He invented dynamite.
Jeez.
I think when you get to that level of wealth and success and you've had that much influence in the world, I think you also realise that there's a legacy here, and what do I want my legacy? And I think a lot of sports people have that, where they get to end their careers and go, actually, what is my legacy going to be? Like, how much do I want to take a risk with this? And you see it a lot with boxers, where they get to the end of their career and they don't want the kind of risky fight, they want the easy fights. Mayweather, by far one of the best boxers of all time, arguably, if you're looking at maybe the most successful ever. But at the end of his career, he was quite picky with who he went with. He was fighting.
Damage the legacy.
He was fighting Conor McGregor for a reason, because he knew he was going to get beat, because he knew it was going to pay well. And he actually openly said at the end of his career, he was like, "I've made all the kind of big fights, the big money fights that I can do. Now I'm just going to fight people who are easy and can pay me."
Two of my favourite athletes from a moral perspective, both retired at the top. So Tony Bellew sort of said, "Oh, my kids have got everything they ever need. My grandkids have got everything they ever need. I've not even got grandkids." But he's like, "They're done. They're sorted." And Nico Rosberg, I really admired what Nico Rosberg did. Won a world championship and went, "Right, I'm out. I'm done." That took everything. And that's credit to someone like Lewis Hamilton.
There was another MMA fighter that did that recently. Khabib.
Khabib did that,
And just
at the top of the top.
He was the only thing with Khabib, he was 14, I don't know. I always wonder why he didn't.
But he wasn't that old as well.
No, but
he wasn't old. He wasn't expected to retire.
Again, arguably the best MMA fighter on cards, because he also, they reckon in his career, he only ever lost one round. Imagine that. 49 fights, I reckon he only ever lost one round, and it was to Conor McGregor.
Wow. And now
How crazy is that?
It's about paying it forward. That's why people put their names on gyms, people put their names on wings of hospitals, because they want that to be their legacy. They want to pay it forward. And
I've got a funny story about that. I used to do a bit of work at Nottingham University in my assessing job. And the extension of Nottingham, I think it was Nottingham Trent, was the David Ross Sports Village. And David Ross is the guy who founded, I think it's Carphone Warehouse.
Okay.
So I'm sat in this reception area, and I'm looking around, I'm like, this is amazing. And this guy saw me looking around. And he says, "Oh, are you new here?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just here for the day." And I'm like looking around and says, "This is incredible." I'm like, "David Ross has done a good job." And he stayed really quiet, and he was like, yeah. It's just unbelievable. And look, if you look up there, and I looked at this guy, and I'm like, why are you telling me all this? Turns out I was talking to David Ross. I didn't know. So I mentioned, like, this guy's just been talking to me. I went, that's David Ross. I've just been having a chat with David Ross, and him putting his name to something. To give something back to the uni in his city that did him so well. I just love that. Weren't a vanity project. It could have been like, I did this.
Do you know what I love even more than that? Not one up that, but like, because I appreciate that. But equally for you guys, Fit Dads Podcast, I had to go into the Fit Dads Podcast to find your names, because obviously I messaged personally to make that initial contact, but I had to go and find the names. And it's the same with the thing that I've done. I want it to be more than just who you are. Like, if you put your name on something, I think it sometimes be a little bit weird. Whereas I love, because we don't do a lot of the video with the podcast, when I travel up and down the UK and people reference it in third word, they're like, "Oh yeah, I was hearing this thing on the Firefighters Podcast." They use it as part of the vernacular. They're like, "I heard this great fire behaviour expert from Sweden or whatever." and I can talk to them about it, and they've got no idea who I am because they don't see my face on it and they don't see the video. But also, I don't even tell them because I'm just like, that's such a great compliment. It's like, this thing has helped you way, and that's what I love about podcasts, because this stuff will live until the internet dies. Until the internet goes one day, you might be dead next year, and your daughter might listen to this in 15 years' time and go, that was my dad, and he paid all that information forward, and he wasn't getting money for it, and it's there now, and it helps people. And that's why I think it's a really, really weird but such a fulfilling thing, that the internet has been a gift for entrepreneurs, and it takes away all the barriers for people that just want to spread a message. There used to be so many barriers. You had to get chosen by the person, put on a certain platform to spread your message. But now, anybody can do it.
I think it's only going to ever work for a select group of people. I think that, I don't know, Joe Rogan often says that anyone can have a podcast, you can do anything, everyone will be great. But I'm not sure I agree with that, because I think, number one, a lot of people haven't got massive mouths to say for a long period of time. As he says, only maybe an inch deep. Number two is like, it's relatively complex to set up, shall we say. It's not straightforward. There's no buy out the box at the moment podcasting system. And I just think that a lot of people hide behind like a business.
You don't want to get found out.
A face. You don't want to get found out. And it's also, it's that within that is failure. People don't want to fail at it. People don't want to start something and say, fuck, it didn't work. And I think
you don't want to come on here and say something wrong and everybody goes, he doesn't even know what resistance training is. No one cares. You know what I meant.
If you really know what you're talking about, you should be able to sit down for an hour, 45 minutes, minimum half an hour, and discuss that topic in detail with another person. For sure.
100%. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Your family is back. We're going to live by what we've been talking about, a bit of authenticity, and go and spend time with loved ones. I'm going to travel back now. It's been an absolute pleasure spending the time with you fellas. Absolutely massive
awesome.
love.
Thank you today, mate.
Brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, man.
Our longest episode by far. We actually did a 50th episode, which was an hour and 45 minutes. I think this is over an hour and 45 minutes.
Way longer.
I'm going to propose splitting this in half, to be honest.
Well,
because I do think, like, ever since after the break in particular, we went very, I suppose, mental health driven, very target driven in terms of men's mental health. So
do you want to do it as a part one and part two?
Let's give him some extra work to do. So let's go now, and we'll quickly go around the table, and just because also I only started doing this about a year or so ago, giving people the place to go, because you do a podcast, it's like a warm bath. Someone's listened to this for an hour and a half, and they go, where do I go to from here? So where's the best place for people to go to find a little bit more about you?
Probably Instagram at r5.online. You'll find me there. How about yourself?
Firefighters Podcast. You can find us on any social media platforms, Spotify, iTunes. If you want loads of documents and loads of information, loads of extra content about how to get into the fire service, all the information, you can go to our Patreon site, but just type in the Firefighters Podcast on any kind of Google, you'll find us.
Amazing. And for me, Instagram, probably where I spend most of my time. It's at Thompson Training with an underscore at the end. I've got a weekly newsletter that goes out called Fitness Philosophy, which sort of develops people's critical thinking.
That's so good. You've got to do the weekly goddamn emails, Paul Moore. That's what we're talking about.
It's in my head, mate.
Get into that discipline.
It's in my head.
I've got one about that, and it's going to be a Firefighter 5-Bullet Friday. Stole it from Tim Ferriss. Who does his 5-Bullet Fridays. And I'm like, God, is it by such discipline? It's another thing to do every week. Anyway, we'll wrap it up now. I'm going to put it out there and say we're going to do something again at X timeline, 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 6 months. If people want topics to discuss, send them in any capacity, or we'll just make shit up, and then we'll talk about our own thoughts about it.
We said this is like our initial getting to know everyone, just chatting bollocks basically. But I think next time we have like some topics that we're passionate about, we'll pre-discuss them, get some bullet points written down, and come in and fire away on them for sure.
Beautiful, love it,
guys. Thank you, awesome.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you for watching the Fitness Podcast. We'll see you guys on the next one.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.